today's episode we're looking at the fundamentals of smallholding, the building blocks, if you like, upon which everything that we do is built. And in fact, you could go so far as to say that without these two building blocks, no smallholding would be possible. And the two building blocks in question are WD-40 and gaffer tape. And it's quite possible that there are other walks of life which would consider these two essential to their being, but they're no less true than in smallholding. And in fact, if you have browsed a lot on the internet, you may well have come across the engineering flowchart, which attempts to describe how these two fundamentals work. But I don't think that something as fundamental, as essential as WD-40 or gaffer tape can be explained by a simple engineering flowchart. As important as engineering is, I think there's something far more basic, a more human, existential question can be answered with these two things. And I'd like to show you how that might be the case. Because for me, gaffer tape is far more sophisticated than simply the purpose for which it was invented. You can fashion new objects with it. You can create brand new things that never existed before, like, for example, this perfect bespoke doorstop. It is created entirely from gaffer tape. It is fastened to the door frame with gaffer tape for two particular purposes. Number one, this is my workshop, and my children often will come running in here to see what I am building. And if they do, and the door were to shut, this door jamb will stop the door closing upon their fingers, but most importantly, it stops it with the opening far enough open so that there's no danger of them grazing their skin. So it really is an example of gaffer tape being used for far more than simply attaching and adhesing two objects together. And then WD-40. Like gaffer tape, far more powerful than simply the purposes for which it was invented, and they're even listed on the tin. It says here that it stops squeaks, it drives out moisture, it cleans and protects, it loosens rusted parts, it frees sticky mechanisms, and indeed it does all of those things. But to me that's a little bit pedestrian, because I think what it also does is offer you the perfect opportunity to deconstruct things which you don't actually want in the first place. So, for example, on my workbench here, I have some rubbish, a bit of paper, a bit of plastic, that kind of thing, and using WD-40, it's quite simply to marvellous. And so there you have it. And with all respect to the engineers of the world, I'd like to suggest that the engineering flowchart, whilst good, isn't good enough to serve the power, the potential of WD-40 and gaffer tape. And so I'd like to suggest an amendment, and therefore I give you the existential flowchart, which I think offers more depth to the capability of these two fundamental items. Now, pay attention. Over here, does it exist? No. Well, if it doesn't exist, then it should. You build it with gaffer tape. If it does exist, and it shouldn't, you burn it with WD-40. Any questions?